Hello, everyone. I'm Rick Zanotti, and if you thought things were bad yesterday, let's think about what's happening in commercial real estate today and starting, and it's not good. Anyway, here to scare you some more are Drs. Susan Nash and myself. I'm Rick Zanotti. Here we go.
This show is sponsored by Relate Corporation, digital learning, corporate video, learning design, and management consulting. Visit us at www.relatecasts.net. Thanks.
And we are back. Hi, Susan. How are you doing?
Oh, fine. This is a really great topic. It's one that I've been concerned about for a long time. I think other people are too. And just it's worrisome.
It is worrisome. What is it nowadays? If you think about it, if you ever watch the news, by the way, don't watch the news. If you're out there, just skip it. Forget it. You're not going to learn anything new. They're just going to work on your cortisol settings. That's it. How much stress can you have? A lot.
Exactly.
So don't worry about that. And what we're seeing right now is just a lot of bad news everywhere. Now, mind you, most of it is not that great. Some of it hasn't come totally. Like, for example, real estate markets around the country should have collapsed completely at the end of last year, but they didn't. So much for the news, right? However, there are problems in the commercial real estate market that have been going on for not just a couple of years. These have been going on for at least 5 to 10 years. Vacancy rates in major cities have been really low. I'm sorry, really high. And it's getting worse. In New York City, California's got like 50% vacancy rates in big cities. Los Angeles, San Francisco, I think might be up to like 70% at the rate they're going. It's a real mess up there. And that's not an exact number. That's just more of a feeling. But New York, I heard just the other day, was at 30%, New York City. That's high for New York City. A lot of vacancy. Susan, where do you think it's going right now?
Well, okay, you made a few points that really resonate with me. First of all, I think when I think about the occupancy rate, and when you said that it's declining and the vacancy rate going up, it's true, and it predates COVID, but of course COVID made things go really, really
killed it.
Crazy. Yeah, and the thing is that people have been attempting to do all kinds of things to correct that. For example, they've been trying to put like in Houston, for example, they're building big buildings downtown, but they're also putting housing and putting boutique groceries, etc., and trying to make it like a community approach. But the problem is that it's really expensive and people can't afford it. And then in New York City, you talked about they're trying to get people to go back by taxing people who are working remotely. So you have to pay a convenience tax to be able to work remotely, and your employer has to pay that. Of course, they pass it on, so they cut your pay. But I mean, it's just the strategies aren't working, and I'm wondering why. What are the factors that are keeping people out of downtown offices?
I think part of the problem is crime. Crime is up a lot, and nobody talks about crime. It's up a lot in almost all major, actually blue states, hate to say it, but all the blue states, especially the big city blue states like New York, like California, have rampant crime everywhere. That's a big bummer for people. They don't want to take a subway. They don't want to take a bus. They don't want to take a train to work and risk attacks, this or that. And the media plays it down. Go to YouTube. There's a million videos of attacks on subways. It's just not good. And that's just one thing. Getting to work. You may have a commute. The commute may be in cars, maybe in something else. When you get there, are you going to be safe? Maybe, maybe not. The other thing is the real estate rents have not really gone significantly down for commercial, not to the point where it should be. So if you're in a big skyscraper, you're still going to pay a lot of money the higher up you go, or just even in certain buildings. So they've got to justify high inflation, other problems, low sales, low this, low that, utility costs rising greatly thanks to stupidities done by governments. And so what do you have left? A lot of fear. If I rent, and I rent this for 5 or 10 years, I may not be around in 5 or 10 years. I may not have the income to warrant 1 year. And that's a lot of big companies have ditched. This happened more during COVID, but they ditched their big call centers, the big warehouses, and they've gone to smaller things, 200-300 people offices versus 3,000-5,000 people offices. That's a huge amount of offices being sold off. And the other bad thing is you've got people like, Amazon, Bill Gates. They are buying real estate like there's no tomorrow because it's been boarded up, shut down and then they're converting it into either more warehousing or whatever else they plan on doing with it. So they're taking advantage of the situation, which they're probably half causing, due to the Antifa riots and all that. They all actually, there was an ex-HUD runner of HUD. She analyzed the patterns of movement during all the riots that happened, I think, in 2020. And it was all in the same exact areas in every city. And right after those riots happened, immediately in every same city where they happened, here come Bezos, Gates, and several others buying everything up. And you just shake your head and go, okay. And she was saying, what's the plan? I don't know. She goes, but it's awfully coincidental that in every single city that's happening. Well, that's affecting commercial real estate, both sales and rentals. Some ideas.
Well, okay, so let's look at the statistics. Okay, according to Morgan Stanley, there's potential for commercial real estate to drop 40%. Mm-hmm. And then there's also the potential for, and then this includes, so the commercial real estate includes office buildings, not just downtown office buildings, but shopping centers, mm-hmm. multifamily apartments, hotels, and even data centers. And they're saying that data centers and hotels are not affected in that way, and neither are warehouses. But if we look specifically at downtown office buildings, then maybe there's planned, maybe it's not, but the homelessness, the issues of nothing to do when you're down there because there are no restaurants left, there's no commercial. There are no grocery stores left. I just came back from Denver, and there aren't as many restaurants downtown as there used to be. Of course, a lot of the office buildings are vacant. And some people claim, for example, Mark Grinnis of EY America's Real Estate suggests that private equity might be a solution, that once they go into foreclosure, private equity will come in and swoop in. But that's not really a solution if there's no demand.
That's true.
And if people still don't want to go in. I have a few ideas, but I'll get to those later.
Well, let's get to your ideas now, because you just made some good points. And you're totally right on private equity. Private equity is there where there's a reason to be there. If you have if you have total vacancy in a building, private equity is not going to attract people. They're just going to own the building. Isn't that to sit and wait? And private equity doesn't like to sit and wait too often.
No. So they're going to, so their idea of flipping it in 4 years won't work. But here's what could potentially happen. Private equity, that a larger private equity could get it, then they could have to go bankrupt. Maybe they're too big to bail. So the government bails them out. So then we have unplanned private-public partnership. And then we'll say, okay, how can we use these? If we could actually, I've seen a lot of shopping malls repurposed into community colleges and technical training centers. I'm wondering if you could convert some of the high rises into like schools. I mean, and then use some of the underused sports facilities around downtowns for your the arenas and all that for some of the activities like recess or whatever.
Well, the only problem I see with converting something, for example, into schools, the maintenance on those buildings is humongous. So to
Well,
maintain
I
a
mean,
school, a public school, for example, I don't think they could afford it because just running a building, the electrical costs alone are huge, and most schools
well,
can afford that.
it depends on the school's budget. And remember, this is a private public partnership,
Hmm.
and I can also see a lot of government buildings going downtown. So these will probably
Yeah,
turn into government centers. So
yeah.
like I can see FBI or law
Well, that's just what
enforcement,
we
all this
need.
stuff.
Just what we need. More bureaucratic offices. It's just perfect.
Well,
My,
I mean, for and computer data centers, like in government
hmm.
data centers, just thinking.
Yeah, I mean that'd be interesting. Um, it's a real issue. It's a real issue because the cities have not done their jobs right to keep the city safe, keep them accessible, keep them clean, keep them uh, not only, well, let's face it, commercial real estate also depends on residential real estate. How much housing is available for people to live there? Let's go back to our old Sim City days. Remember when we used to build?
Right, right.
You couldn't have a commercial structure unless you had housing for people to live near the commercial structure to keep it busy and to keep them with small commutes. So that's the other part of this problem. You've got the commercial problem, which is a big one. The housing problem hasn't totally disintegrated yet, but we're probably very close because there's a lot of banks that are slowly collapsing. Some have already collapsed. And some of those banks that are collapsing are sort of dubious as to why they collapsed. You really wonder if that was on purpose or not, because there's a lot of that too. But if you don't have any housing for people to go to, what are they going to work? Or they may
Well,
not.
but
Or where's work going to get people? And if not everybody can be remote, it's interesting.
yeah. Well, and just as I was mentioning earlier, in Houston, all around downtown, it's planned. I mean, people realize that. So you've got all kinds
Mm.
of housing going in.
Yeah.
The downside is it's expensive. But I
Hmm.
saw in Denver a lot of there's a lot of gentrification going on. So you have lots and lots of nice looking new apartments, and they attract the people who like urban areas. So
Sure.
they tend to be people who are willing and eager to maintain and keep their places up. But that said, I mean, you're going to have either the core city that's going to be for the wealthy, and who knows what in the suburban areas. Either that, or you're going to have the opposite, and it's just going to be like a government center downtown. It's just going to be a government enclave, and then some of the housing things that go under will become kind of like, I don't know. Remember how there used to be company towns?
Hmm.
they'll
Yeah.
have they'll have dorms for and housing for. They'll convert a lot of the hotels and things into um, housing for the employees, and you can
Right.
have an option.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking out loud.
Yep. Yeah. We're going back to the old ages again. Actually, we'll have
Yeah,
feudal towns pretty soon. That's pretty good. I can just see that going on too. We're not
yeah.
that far sometimes.
Yeah, we're
Um,
talking about a 15. I think we're describing a 15-minute city.
oh gosh, yeah, but have you seen what they're doing in some places in Europe with 50-minute cities? They're locking them down into a 50-minute city, and most of the people who work in that 50-minute city don't work in the city. They work in other cities, and other cities work in their city, and nobody can get to anybody. So it's really stupidity reigns again, one supreme when the bureaucrats take over. If you're
Well,
watching the show right now and you have any good ideas on what we're talking about, these are problems. It's going to affect you or us or someone else in the very near future. It already has affected people in some very large cities. Take, for example, LA, San Francisco, New York, Chicago. They've all got massive social problems, not to mention massive commercial problems. So things to think about. What would your solution be? A-bombs are left out. We don't want to get violent. So what do you do with these places? How do you fix it? There's a lot of bad ideas out there, and there's some good ones, but not a heck of a lot. And the politicians have no ideas. They never do. They just jump on whatever fad is going on. Then they go, that sounds good. Yeah, we'll do something stupid. And it never works out. There's dumb ideas. So,
well, what I see, the thing I see about this, sorry to jump in, but the thing I see about these urban things, even if when you're including housing, like, which they are in downtown Houston, and then there's a part in Houston that's called City Center that has kind of, it's cool. I mean, it's all, you can walk to everything. But you can also drive away. You're free to drive away because but the thing is, both areas are kind of devoid of children. And I think that in families. And so I think if you really want to have a thriving downtown or a thriving city, you have to create a support system and incorporate an extended family. So not just not just the children and the parents, but also the grandparents. And it can be done, because if you have to convert the hotels or the apartments that are going under, can you convert them into, like, have your mother live next door, not in the same place. I mean, or your parent. I mean, I think that they could be really humane and cool things. It's just going to take some rethinking.
Mm-hmm. And time.
And having
money.
Schools and medical things close, too.
That's true. Not to mention bakeries.
Oh, that too.
Gotta eat. Yeah. Anyway, well, what's your opinion? Let us know. Put some comments in the notes below, and we'll answer them, and maybe we'll come back and touch on this subject, because I think very soon it's going to be touching on all of us, one way or another. Susan, thanks a lot again for this show, and next week we will be back. I think we have a show in Spanish next week with Carolina Mejia from Colombia. She's a geologist and doing marketing for a British firm that's innovating in the areas. Actually, what exact areas are they? Is it more energy and?
Yeah. So what they're doing is, when people are trying to understand the structure of the Earth through, they use seismicity, and so basically, instead of big explosions, these are tiny ones. So it's like environmentally friendly explorations of Earth structure.
Cool. That should be interesting. Anyway, we'll see you guys next week on eBizChat. Have a good one. Take care. Bye-bye, Susan.
Bye.
And that's a wrap.